One thing that I always took an issue with in addiction recovery was this concept of powerlessness. As a high achiever and entrepreneur myself, this whole step one of admitting that I was powerless, it just never really connected with me. I had no problem admitting that I had a problem. I had no problem admitting that I needed help and that I couldn't solve this on my own because I had multiple attempts to control this on my own that failed. But again, this concept of powerlessness, that I needed to somehow surrender my recovery process to someone else, a higher power or just other people in general, the concept never really stuck with me. I'm not sure how effective it really is. It may work within the substance addiction space, but I'm not sure if it works that well within the sex and porn addiction space. When I go to these meetings, if you guys have been to 12-step meetings, I'm not a huge 12-step fan. A lot of you guys know that. Just don't find it a very efficient structure, at least for me personally. But that was one of the concepts that I struggled with, was this, hey, we're powerless and we're surrendering this to someone else. Listen, I'm sorry. You were not born with this addiction. This was something that you developed. You used your power to develop it. I know it wasn't intentional, and I know that there's some things that maybe happened to you as you were growing up that were out of your control. But ultimately, you did, like it or not, you used your power to buy into these beliefs. And now you're struggling with this area of compulsivity to, satisfy some sort of need outside of yourself. And you're going to be the only one who's going to get it out of your life. You're going to use your power to remove it. When you're in therapy and you're working through this, it's you using your power to remove this thing from your life. I'm sorry, powerlessness is just bullshit. It is just a bullshit concept that I believe is the reason why there's such little sobriety. And at some point in time, the responsibility has to come back in here, and you got to do the work to change your belief system. You've probably heard me say this before, but sex addiction happens in an environment that allows it to happen. Meaning that you believe certain things, and because of those certain beliefs about yourself, about others, about what's appropriate, about what's not, about what sex is, about when you can get it and how you can get it, right? It's the set of all of these beliefs that allow it to happen. It's when most men would look at that and say, you know what, I'm not going to betray my wife. I'm not going to lie to my family and my kids and potentially contract a sexually transmitted disease. Or there's guys that when they look at that, they're like, no way, I'm not doing that. It's not even close to worth the risk. But there's a ton of guys who have sexually compulsive behaviors who engage in that risk. And because of their belief system, it's 100% justified at the time. And the only way you're going to stop doing that is if you stop believing it. And the only way you're going to stop believing it is if you decide to stop believing it. Don't just go into therapy and have your therapist fix you. That's just not how it works. Therapists are trained to be able to use their skill set to help you process the information. And they use their expertise to help you figure out what's going on inside of you so that ultimately you can change it. Not the therapist, not your wife, not God, you. You are going to be the one to change this thing. So be careful. There's a difference between surrender and powerlessness. Surrender is understanding that, hey, listen, I can't muscle my way through this. My current belief system and the way I see things, the way I do things, I'm not the person who's qualified to fix this problem. But that does not mean that you are not powerful, and does not mean that you are not ultimately going to use the help from other people to use your power to change this dang thing.